that is a really, really significant challenge. And probably very similar to most organisations, I think at the moment, one of the things that we're facing is that within 3 years, 70% of the people that have joined us this year won't be a member anymore, if the trends carry on.
Welcome to the Stakeholder Impact Forum, a platform by Casaris exploring how member and purpose-driven organisations can drive real change through stakeholder engagement, community building and measurable impact. Today we're joined by Matthew Lovell, who brings hands-on experience across health, leisure and science sectors, most recently at the Institute of Physics, with a strong track record in growing and retaining membership communities. In this interview, you'll learn how to build onboarding journeys that boost retention, create a member-first culture across teams, engage early career members with targeted digital content, and use simple tactics like touchpoints and peer stories to build lasting loyalty.
But it's a pleasure to have you here today. It's really great. Let's jump right in to our conversation. So a little bit about your background. You've worked across so many different sectors in health, in leisure, and now in the physics sector, kind of seemingly unrelated. So can you tell us a little bit of your journey into member organizations so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background and career history is very varied, as you've picked up. In terms of membership organisations, I actually started at a private members golf club, and this was on the back of moving to the northeast and to live with my wife and family. And within that, it was a relatively small golf club in terms of the membership bodies that I've then gone on to join, but the principles were still the same, and a lot of the challenges that I saw then at the golf club are very true today in terms of it is a costly membership fee when you're looking to join, and members were constantly challenging what's the value for money that I'm going to get out for this, how much am I going to pay, what are all the other financial issues that I've got to try and balance, especially around those individuals that are starting out in their early lives. They're setting up families, setting up homes, and all these things to balance, not just in terms of money, but also that time aspect as well. And that is very true still today. When you're looking at any sort of membership or subscription, you're always questioning those things. But I spent 5 years at the golf club and at the same time transitioned to the Bannatyne Group. And I entered the Bannatyne Group in an administration role, but very quickly climbed to become general manager of one of their clubs in the northeast and had great success. I grew that first club to the biggest membership base it ever had within an 18-month period, and then was asked to move on to go and support another club where the general manager was moving on to go and visit another site and spend some time there. And again, probably that was one of my favourite clubs to be at, purely because my personal interest is in cricket, and it was based at Durham County Cricket Club. So it was well worth the travel up there each day for me. But again, we did some really special things there. We had some unique challenges, including the venue being part of the Cricket World Cup in 2019. And so we had a lot of operational challenges to overcome. But despite all those challenges, again, we took the membership to a point where it grew, despite all those challenges, and it actually again achieved a record membership level at that time for that particular club. So again, really, really positive achievement. And then my third club with the Bannatyne Group was one a bit closer to home, but facing very different challenges. It had a lot of investment. The general manager had left during the COVID lockdown period. So there was a lot of uncertainty for the team at the time, a lot of challenges to face anyway, and bringing that experience and knowledge and understanding of developing those strong teams, of reassuring them and putting those foundations in place while operating with all those restrictions at the same time was a unique challenge, but one that I really, really enjoyed. And then now I've been with the IOP for just over 18 months, and the challenges we see here are still very familiar to me, especially when I look at go back to the golf club days and the private health club days. Both of those had very similar traits in terms of aging demographics. How do we engage younger audiences? How do we retain younger audiences? How do we demonstrate that value, as well as get those communications across to them in the ways that they want to receive them, especially with all the noise and the traffic that you've got that you're competing with.
I know we will come back into almost everything you said in more detail later, but maybe just to reflect a little bit, because our series is about creating impact as a member organization for their members and other stakeholders, but also creating engagement with your members. How did your experiences in these very diverse sectors, how did they shape your way of how you create positive impact and engagement with your members?
Yeah, so obviously my background, my first job after I left university wasn't in a membership organisation. It was working as a professional headhunter, and I was the individual going and sourcing the talent that we were looking for. And at the time we were exclusively dealing with private equity arms of banks. So developing that skill set of communicating and establishing those relationships, and again trying to demonstrate why am I of interest to this person that's already had a really successful career. So again, learning those communication techniques and building those layers of communication. You can't go in there thinking you've got a one-shot wonder that's going to solve all your problems and get you to the person you need to speak to. It's the same when you then start to look at members. So at the Ballantine Group, as I moved through and progressed there was a lot of knowledge and understanding that the organisation had about how many touch points we'd expect to have someone that wasn't yet a member, that we were going to convince them to join. And then once they were into the organisation, into the clubs, what were they then doing to support those individuals? And when I'd moved to Chester Street, the company had organised and introduced a new onboarding welcome journey for members, looking at the fitness aspect of their journey, because that's why people were essentially joining. They want to improve their fitness, their health and their well-being. But then as a club, we looked at it and said, this is great from a fitness perspective, but what about that club atmosphere? How are we going to make them feel a truly valued member of this club? And we looked at the ways that every single team member could play a role in that. So for simple things like on day one of being a member, or even prior to being a member, they will already have had engagement from the sales team, probably been shown around by the sales team or another one of the duty managers or myself maybe. So they've got a little bit of knowledge typically about the club and what that experience might feel like. But then those simple little steps, so once they've joined online, it was then giving them a courtesy call from the reception team for them to introduce themselves and say, these are the things to expect that you're going to experience on your next visit or your first visit. And they were simple as, we need to make sure you can get seamless access to the club when you want it. So we need to set up your account, finish the setup on your account. To do that, we're going to have to take a photo and issue your wristband. Then at those stages, when they're into the club, would then explain the next level that they could access if they wanted to. So, for example, the wristbands, it was going to be their way to utilise our lockers. It was also a way to set up and link a payment system. So you didn't ever have to bring anything but your wristband and yourself to a club, and you could make purchases, you could interact with all the different areas and get where you wanted to be, when you wanted to be. And getting that knowledge and understanding across all these levels was really, really key, because then if a member did experience an issue, they didn't have to go looking around and find the receptionist or the sales team. The fitness team all knew what to do. The club maintenance team knew what to do. The in-house support, domestic care support team, they all knew what to do. So every single member of staff had that same baseline knowledge and level of understanding to help build those experiences. No frustration from a member going, my locker's not working, why is it not working? They knew straight away some simple fixes that they could try and resolve these issues, and 99% of the time they could without any further help. So it creates those seamless experiences. Again, when you're interacting with technology and the equipment, they didn't have to go and find a fitness advisor who might be in a class or doing a pool test or anything like that. The first member of staff they came to could resolve the majority of the basic issues that a member would experience. And again, it was just always about that communication and taking ownership of those issues if they ever arrived. But again, it was more about going on the positive front and putting in play these processes. So like I say, day one, the reception team would call them up, explain what they're going to experience. Then when they're in, the fitness team and whilst they were there, they would book them in for their first fitness appointment, which is where this fitness journey clicked in. Then after that, we'd make sure we'd do some recommendations as to classes, and would have those documented on their membership profile about things that we want them to experience. So again, we could look out for those triggers and say, right, we recommended this class. Have they attended it? If not, why not? Can we do another touch point? So the fitness advisor, when they came to do a reassessment with them or like catch up, they could see them around the gym and go, oh, see, I haven't booked into this class yet. Is there any questions that you might have? Is there any uncertainty? Or was there, have you had a look and you've seen and it wasn't for you? What's going on? And build those relationships. And then, like I say, the initial plan was to try and get them to 12 weeks of this whole concept. And where it started is most clubs would get them to the halfway mark at 6 points. And we were the only club to get anyone to the 12-week point because we'd put in these extra layers. That's the only thing I can attribute it. We didn't go, all right, we're going to see you at week 1, week 6, and week 12. It was like, we're going to see you at day 1, week 1, week 3, week 6, week 9, week 12, and build up those relationships. And every single time a member came into the club, irrespective of who they are or what we were doing, one of the things we always aim to achieve is give someone an acknowledgement that they're coming into the club. So even if we're on the phone or dealing with another customer, a hand signal, a wave, a nice smile in their direction. And again, as they were leaving the club, just saying goodbye, see you later, hope you had a good workout. Those small touch points to acknowledge their existence, that they're engaging with us and they're not just passing by our gate and they're just another number or another face that we see coming and going. And again, that's what we're trying to establish now. What are those touch points that we can introduce? And this is where some of the onboarding journeys that I've talked to you about with the IOP, we've started to look at those things. What are the things that we wanted to experience? But fundamentally, where we have to start is strip back the whole journey. What is our offering to our membership? Let's understand that first of all, build that knowledge and base, and then do some internal training and support. Because again, when I first joined the IOP, there was a lot of confusion over who was eligible for what was a membership benefit and what wasn't. How do we build that portfolio up? And if we didn't know internally, how can we possibly communicate that externally outside the organisation? So that is where we focused the first 6 months of my efforts is let's build that matrix. Let's understand the benefits and which ones are applicable to which members. And now it's trying to be a case of building those journeys to position them in the right place at the right time, because different audiences will require or will be more attracted to different benefits. And again, that's something that we're trying to build a better knowledge and understanding of through our data and through our interactions with our members. And then it's making the relevant ones, because there's no point be talking to someone about mentoring if they're their earliest career stages and they're confused. How they won't feel like they can mentor someone because they're confused themselves. So it's like, if we can talk about but then we talked about our fellows about what they most want to do, and is they want to mentor and give back to the community. And that's why we're trying to create those opportunities. And that's something we don't currently do greatly at the moment. But it's something we're looking into and how it's saying, can we facilitate this? Because that's what they want to do. And at the other end of the spectrum, those at those early career stages are saying to us, what we want is networking and career support. So if this is what they're telling us that they want and they need most, then let's see what we can do to facilitate those things. And again, what I'd probably apply to every membership organisation is networking and career support, or networking and support. Take the word career out. Networking and support is what probably the majority of all your members will want at those early stages. The rest of them, they just want to procure your services or gain access to something that you have. So if I take it back to the golf club days, then I'd say networking. They want to meet other people that are interested in golf. They want to find someone that can play at the times that they can play at. And then they want to improve their game. So again, they'd engage with the professional who'd give them lessons. They'd get out and just be on the course and experience and improve naturally and chat to colleagues and might try different equipment in. That's their networking and support. Some of them would just come in, they feel like they're confident just to get straight on there. They want to procure that services, be out on the course, get the handicaps and the competitions, things like that. At the fitness level, people are looking again, really, really uncertain. The hardest part, I always say, of getting someone to join a gym is getting them through the front door. Once you've done that, they've obviously felt that confidence or comfort level to say, right, I'm here, now what? And that was where that real fitness journey that we looked at, and that was actually only designed to serve 30% of the total membership. That was how, it was really, really focused, saying this is targeting 30% of our potential membership. That's who this is serving. The rest of them, there's going to be other things that we need to work on. But let's focus on this 30%, because this 30% is the most likely to leave because they've not been engaged and supported or met people and had those social interactions. And again, now, like I say, with the IOP, that's exactly where we are. So it's been really interesting to see the common themes always exist, and the challenges that how do we meet those needs.
That's really interesting. And it sounds simple when you kind of lay it out like that, but I think, as you say, so many organizations are facing the same challenges and not doing that. I wanted to just ask one question around that, which was, you talked about a lot about what you do with your staff internally and the kind of teams you have, and you touched on a little bit about what you're reacting to, but what kind of means do you have of getting that data from your stakeholders, listening to them, finding out who that 30% who are most likely to leave are? What kind of tools are you using to get that feedback?
Yeah. So obviously, whilst I've been with the IOP, we've got a really engaged cohort of members that we'll go out and we'll speak to. Just before I actually joined the IOP, they'd done an all-member survey, and the response rate had been somewhere in the region of 30%, which was really, really positive in terms of the overall feedback. And then it's a case of deciphering that, because it's still representative of the organisation. It's not an entirely like this is a catch-all. We can say this is confidently reflecting all the data, so it's representative. Again, from those really key messages at all levels is they wanted to advance their physics knowledge. They wanted to feel part of the community, and all these other things that started to filter down. But for us, our core product that we offer to members is Physics World magazine, and it's like internationally revered magazine, and everyone knows, or the majority of members know about it. Not every member knows about it. According to the survey, it was 96%. So it was 4% of members don't even know about our core product and service to them. So, and then in terms of members valuing it, it was around the 75% mark. So although 96% awareness, 74% were saying, yeah, we really value it. There was the others saying it's the other bits of the membership that you're offering us that are actually really key to me. And then as it dripped down, it was really, really like almost a cliff edge, that the other values and benefits we have weren't that highly rated in terms of value. Awareness was, but valuing them wasn't. And that is, are we positioning them in the right way? Are we communicating them? Do members, if 4% don't know about our core product, what's the likelihood of them knowing about the rest? And this is ultimately where it came back to the challenge. When I first joined the IOP, I spoke to a lot of members of staff. The first question I'd ask them is, what is a member benefit? Tell me one member benefit we provide to our members. And they'd say Physics World magazine. And I'd speak to the next one, it'd be Physics World magazine. I'd speak to the next one, it'd be Physics World magazine. So I started saying, other than Physics World magazine, what's the next member benefit that you could tell me about? And it's been a case of building that portfolio. I spent 3 months building this portfolio and following threads of possible benefits and possibly not, like let's explore it. And where I am now is I have a 46 to 50 slide presentation deck that I can dip in and out of membership benefits. And I'd say that is like my deck. I very seldom use all of them at the same time, because it's about me listening and looking at who my audience is that I'm going to be speaking to and tailoring those messages accordingly. Also very much looking at how much time I've got to talk and how much time am I asking of them. So sometimes it's as little as 10 minutes and I've just got to get the ones that I feel are most important to that audience across. Other times it's 20 minutes, but I'm competing against lunch breaks at conferences and things like that. And then I have my own webinars that I deliver every single month that typically last 45 minutes to an hour. I try to talk for around 35 minutes and I have a guest speaker come along for 5 minutes who's a member who can share their experiences, because I'm not a physicist ultimately. I've not been a part of the organisation for a long time. I want individuals in the best way members can understand what a member can gain from it is by hearing from an actual member, not myself. And then, like I say, we have 15 minutes of Q&A and we deliver that every single month. And we roughly get 10% of new joiners coming along to that webinar. Again, positive numbers. My ambition over the next 12 months is to try and get that up to 15 or 20%. Because what's been really, really interesting on the back of those is the members that have engaged on that webinar and that element of the onboarding journey We've gone from about 60% renewal rate on the first year to over 90% on the renewal rate for the first year. And the only metric I've got that differentiates them is they've engaged to understand by attending that membership webinar what's available to them. So again, and on that webinar, it's very much a touch point. It's like a signposting conversation. Because I don't know who's going to be on that call each month. So I don't know who's going to be interested in what. So it is very much of a highlights reel, going through it all, saying this is what's available to you. And if you've got any follow-ups, there's going to be, we're going to put you in touch with the right people. And this is then where we've started now to try and better understand different audiences, is we are doing like top 10 tips guides, top 4 most benefits are accessible to our international members. Because we do have a strong international membership. Some of the benefits aren't relevant to them if they're based in the UK. So we're trying to position those ones and say, these are the ones for the international members. Say, these are your top 4. There's still a top 9 document after that we can send them. But it's just a case of, like, say, building these layers to say, this is what I think is going to be most interesting to you. Here's some other stuff that's still interesting to you, and trying to lead them down those pathways to the right people in the right time.
Pretty targeted.
That conduit. Yeah. Rather than just going, here's everything. You try and figure out what's relevant to you and ask me some questions later down the line. But again, it's constantly, that's great that I know it. And it's great that, the team around me is starting to understand it. It's that, but our organisation, it has over 100 employees. So it's then a case of making sure that even at the extremities, you've got those fundamentals of, if someone brings up a topic, can they somehow pull that thread in their minds to lead them to linking it back to whoever it is in the organisation that individual might be interested in meeting or learning. And when you take that from 100 employees, we've then got 20,000 plus physicists as a part of our network. So somewhere in our network, more often than not, we can probably say there'll be someone appealing to you. What we don't do is try and link everybody to everybody. We can't do that. We can't really, we're not in a position yet to say, here's a request, can you find me a person like this? But what we do have is our special interest groups, we have our regional branches, we have our social media platforms, and that's where that kind of comes into its own.
Great, thank you.
First of all, thanks for going into so much detail in how you did things in your different roles. I heard one thing through this journey of yours, which came back again and again, which is onboarding. You can't repeat or have a second first impression, obviously. What are the critical success factors that you implement, and how do you find them, that you really give these critical first 3 to 6 months, and you let them experience what it means to be a member and give them the most value in this first short amount of time? How do you do that?
So again, with the fitness days at Valentine Group, that 30% product that I was talking about is we had those initial touch points to say, welcome to the club. And the critical element was getting them booked in to sit down with a fitness advisor. And the fitness advisor would have the notes from the sales team in the pre-appointments, but the pre-member journey. Because at the pre-member journey, we'd look to try and capture the reasons that they were looking to join. Was it just doctor's advice? Was it, I want to feel fit and healthy, I don't want to be so lethargic? Was it, oh, my friend comes to this gym and they've recommended a class? Things like that. So we'd know the reasons for joining. Was it a lifetime event that's coming up in 3 or 6 months' time? Sometimes it was a couple of weeks' time. And you're like, right, Zed's trying to set those expectations that if that's your goal, we can certainly help you start to feel better and get those endorphins going, which naturally make your body feel better. But actually, you're not going to achieve this goal in 2 weeks' time, and there's no point in me promising you that, because it's not going to be a realistic one. So again, they'd have all this knowledge and understanding of the reasons that they'd outlined to the pre-sale team why they were joining. And again, they'd just check them with them, because the other thing we find is you don't always get honesty the first time you ask. Saying, well, actually, and some of those conversations, and because I had done my fitness training, I delivered some of these sessions as well, so I could see them firsthand. They got really, really emotional, because it was just that chance to relax and actually express why they were there and where they faced, the challenges they faced on their fitness journey, and all the other factors that are going to impact it and influence it. And it was okay to say, right, you're not the only one on this journey. we've got everybody else in a very similar boat. So again, it made them feel part of the community, felt them feel safe to say, you're in good hands here, we can take care of you, we can help you. And again, we'd then recommend a basic warm-up exercise, a basic like 3 times a week, do this program 3 times a week. And we also then recommended 2 to 3 classes to try. We said you don't have to try all of them, but these are when they happen during the week. Because again, part of that conversation would be actively listening to say, when is it you can access this gym? Because it's no point me telling you that there's an aqua class at 11 o'clock on a Thursday if you can only come on a weekend. So it's all those things to show we were listening. We're not just like trying to sell them whatever we wanted to sell them. But we also knew there's extensive research in the fitness industry that says members are 60% more likely to stay if they're actively participating in group exercise. So again, we use that knowledge and understanding to say, right, well, that's part of a positive member experience. This is what we want to do. We also introduced more low intensity options of different classes. And so people might have heard of HIIT training or functional training, and people go straight away, that's not for me. But we actually said, right, how can we take this a step back, and how can we make it engaging? And we actually created a low intensity, like functional HIIT training class, and it used little or no equipment. It was just using body weights. Because your body can only move 7 different ways, by the way. Don't know if you know this, but your body can only move 7 different ways. So it's about explaining this to someone, and people would say, can you show me a squat? And they'd go, no way I can squat. You say, can you sit down on a chair? Can you stand back up? You've just completed a squat. It's a supported assisted squat, but you've just squatted. And again, it was just simple little, like overhead press. People didn't understand that an overhead press. They're like, no way I can lift a weight above my head. It's like, all right, you get your shopping home. Which shelf is your beans on? Oh, the top shelf. So how do you get your beans up there? You're lifting a weight above your head, over your head. That's an overhead press. Even if it is just using your baked bean tins, that is still a weightlifting exercise. And it was making these simple little relatable things to their everyday life to break down those barriers and those anxieties about being in the club. And then all of a sudden they had this program that was outlined to them saying, if you do this, we'll revisit you in 6 weeks' time. We did some body metric work about showing them where their body at, which again triggered those emotional stimuluses to say, actually, that's quite shocking, or that's not where I expected I was going to be. But then after 6 weeks, we could show them the improvement they'd made. It wasn't us telling them or anybody else telling them. We could prove statistically using data saying, this is what your body metrics were 6 weeks ago. This is what it's now. All you've done is stick to the plan that's been outlined to you. So for the next week, and then we'd reassess saying, how are you finding this? Because after 6 weeks, some people might start to say, actually, I'm feeling fitter, stronger, more balanced, more stable. So we'd then progress it to say, you've earned this reward. We're now going to set the next challenge for the next 6 weeks. And then again, we'd still stay in touch with them, still acknowledge them around the club, all those wonderful things. At the end of the 12-week points, we'd go, right, this is great engagement. This is what you've achieved. And there was nothing to stop them. We'd get to that point, and then we offered members to start the journey again. Because we knew, yes, it involved staff resource and time, but we knew by keeping them engaged, they were going to become our sales team as well. Out in their own communities, they were going to become our brand ambassadors, whether they knew it or not, because they would go, they'd get the nice compliments. So you got a nice glow about your body. You're looking fitter, stronger, healthier. Yeah, I've joined Bannatyne Group. That was and then all of a sudden we wouldn't need so many touch points or anything like that. They would be, and that's effectively where we got to with Chester Street. Like that time when I talked about the Cricket World Cup, there was no signage on my building in the local area as part of the agreement with the ICC. There was nothing. And all we could do, I couldn't do any local marketing, anything like that, loads and loads of restrictions. So effectively, my building was just a shell, brick walls with gym equipment inside. And if you were to walk past it, you wouldn't be any the wiser unless you really peered through the window and got up close. And we grew the membership to be the biggest base it ever had. And it was because all those fundamentals, the membership was happy, the staff were happy, they were engaged, they felt valued, all those wonderful things created those experiences to say, I want to be a part of this club. So they were just bringing people to us. And it made, all we had to do is keep delivering on those deliverables that we could control. Now, when we look at the IOP, like say the onboarding journey, we've still got loads of mistakes that we haven't made yet that we know we're going to make. But one of the mistakes we were making when I was joining is those onboarding journeys. And we're still not brilliant at it now, but we've been doing some trials and we've got some really interesting data from a cohort where we're doing a 6-week campaign to start to outline some of the membership benefits and try and get more direction to the membership webinars, because we already know the impact they can have. And the feedback we've got is 75% of the people so far have said that the communications have been just right. And that was both in quantity and the frequency. Then in terms of the content, that they've either rated it very good or excellent. 7, 8, 9, 10 out of 10, which again for us. And then finally, we asked a question about how you would rate your membership experience overall. 60% put in 9 and 10. So on the NPS score, if you follow that, there are advocates, there are promoters. And the other 37% said 7 or 8. So again, still really high, but not strictly classified as promoters. So only 3%, which is tiny when you looked at it, was a cohort of 700 individuals we did this trial with. So only 3% have said, actually, the membership hasn't been a great experience for them. So for me, those are some really positive wins. Say, for me, that one about 75% getting the frequency and the timing correct, for me is massive, because we don't want to become an irritant. We don't want to be seen disinterested. So for me, that sweet point is incredibly hard to find, especially when everything else is going on in people's busy lives.
Yeah, I was going to kind of say that you mentioned there that, with Valentine's, it's quite an everyday thing to explain the benefits. You're talking about something that they're coming to you. How do you feel that your approach and the kind of onboarding process that you've been so successful with could work for member organizations which have a maybe more in-depth and slightly more kind of vague benefits? If you think about things like advocacy and stuff, which isn't going to be an immediate benefit like lifting weights.
No, absolutely. And again, this is something we've been able to look into at the IOP. And we want to get people to a position where they feel that they maintain their membership because of the value-based offering to them, that we are the Institute of Physics, we are the ambassador for physics, the voice and the champion of physics. You should want to be a part of us. What we've identified is that it takes about 4 or 5 years to really achieve that overall. It could be shorter for some members, absolutely. But we find that there's a significant drop-off of our newest members not retaining their membership until about the 4th or 5th year. Once they get to the 5th year, probability of them maintaining their membership is extremely high. Until we get them to that point, that is a really, really significant challenge, and probably very similar to most organisations. I think at the moment, one of the things that we're facing is that within 3 years, 70% of the people that have joined us this year won't be a member anymore, if the trends carry on. So one of the things that we're trying to do is how can we reduce each year a little bit? So for example, 40%, we know that around at the moment, we've looked at the stats, it's between 40 and 48% over each year of new members, what we knew at the first time of asking. And all that effort that's gone into help getting them to join, getting them on board and welcoming them is lost, because up to, 40 to 48% of them, they've gone. And you're not going to get them back anytime soon. What we tend to find is that 4 or 5 years later, people may or may not come back, especially at the early career stage. And that is probably the biggest cohort that we see leave, and it is our biggest challenge. 18 to 25 and then 25 to 29-year-olds, recruiting them and retaining them. They don't necessarily know what their career trajectory is going to be. They don't really understand the value offering from a professional body or what that means. I certainly didn't when I finished my university studies. I did management and marketing. I knew who the CMI were. I had no idea what their role was for me.
So basically what you said is keeping and retaining, therefore, new members is critical. Once they stay, once they experience their benefits, they are there for a lifetime, more or less, at least for the Institute of Physics. You said you increase the retention of new members from 60 to 90% at the Institute of Physics. What was critical in this success?
So for this cohort, the only thing we can attribute to it is they attended my membership webinar, which spends 45 minutes explaining the membership benefits as a overall view, and a highlights reel, like I say, to say these are the things that are available to you as members. And one of the things I always added as a caveat at the start, some of these things won't necessarily be relevant to you, but pay attention to them because you may be able to help, especially for the people in senior leadership roles. They may be able to say to an individual further down in their development or their career stages, I've heard what you're saying. I'm pretty sure the IOP have something that meets that need. Why don't you go and chat to Matt or a member of the IOP to find out a little bit more? Just retain that information. Some of the things are absolutely relevant to all the stages, but again, things that aren't there, that aren't relevant, still listen because you may be able to pass on a contact detail, a lead and a conversation. And especially when we talk around the support grants that we have available to us, we have 12 to 14 support grants. 50% of them aren't eligible for international members, but there's 50% that are. And it's about saying to these individuals, and I've met some of our members last year who attended a conference in Harrogate and they travelled from Africa. And they said, but for the support grant, they wouldn't be able to be in attendance there, which is absolutely brilliant to hear.
Amazing. So it can be really as simple as clearly communicating, clearly telling them in an intro webinar, for example, this is your benefits, use them, and this is how to do it. Simple as that, right?
It is as simple as that, but like say, so what I'm hoping is our ambition is to repeat an all-member survey. And that, yes, let's get Physics World from 96 to 100% because we know that's such an amazing product. What I'm probably more interested in seeing, though, is what movement we've had on all the other membership benefits we've had to offer. How much have they gone up, both in terms of awareness and value? Because if we've increased awareness but we haven't increased value, we've only achieved part of the job, not the whole job. So what I'd like to see is on all those other different membership benefits, have they moved up the scale and how far?
But that's an important thing. And I remember still when we had our last conversation, you mentioned sometimes there's a mismatch between external and internal perception and communication. So if you tell one thing of these are your benefits to the members, and on the other hand, internally, there's an assumption of this is what we provide, and this is not the same thing, then obviously you create two different worlds. How do you make sure to guarantee that what you told members externally and what internal perception was that this was a full match?
Yeah, no, completely. And probably the best example, there is an example at Valentine, but I can go back a little bit further still beyond that, is for a while I was working on behalf of a couple of medical practices, pre-surgeries, and there they had a challenge about engaging and wanting to increase attendance at appointments. Was that one of the practice, but well, on the whole, there was 74% attendance for appointments people had made. That how can we impact this? And because they had two sites, it was really easy to do a trial, like A/B testing. And at one of them, we introduced, and there's research out there that says if you get someone to communicate something 3 times in a conversation, they're more likely to retain it. And also ask them, is this something you want? And they say yes, they get a positive affirmation, then they're committing to attending. And it's part of our culture because we've committed to something. We want to don't want to let people down. So we introduced some really simple changes at one of the practices and not at the other. And it was, again, going through and just repeating the appointment time and saying, this is the appointment you want. You're asking me to confirm this booking right now. And we went from, like I say, 74% attendance to 93% attendance at that practice in the space of a couple of weeks, just by introducing those simple changes. And we didn't change it at the others, and theirs maintained the same. And again, when I moved to Valentine Group, and this again goes back to my very earliest career days, I'd attended a training day, and it was a very simple communication exercise that I was taken through on that occasion. And the exercise was that I was shown a piece of paper on which it had a circle, a triangle, and a rectangle. And the one instruction was I wasn't allowed to use any shape-related words to communicate to the rest of the team. And I had to try and figure a way to communicate these 3 simple shapes, which for me are simple shapes, but without any related words. And it's then communicate to that team. There was 8 to 10 people in the room. There was 8 to 10 different representations drawn down on the paper, showing me back what I was trying to describe. And that just really hit home how hard communication can be. So we need to make it as simple, as clear as possible. This is what the expectation is. And then always close that loop back. What have you heard me say? I've said this. What? And again, that wasn't part of that exercise on the day. The loop there was, you've told me this. This is what I've drawn down on my piece of paper. So that was them closing the loop to say, this isn't good communication. There was some not bad, and it's again showing how minds differently work. And this is something I've repeated at every single club that I've done it with. We also repeated it at the IOP last year, an all staff day. And again, had good, willing and welcome volunteers to take part in the process, trying to do, use their communication skills to describe it. But then when we had 120, 130 people hold up their pieces of paper to show what they'd heard, every single one is different. So it just goes, what we say isn't always what is heard by the individual. So, and it goes back to the Valentine examples, is that the instructors will always reverse the communications. So they will point to their left and say, go to your right at the same time. And it's a really, really skillful part of what they have to do every single time, is whatever direction they're traveling in, they have to say the opposite to what they're asking their body to do. Otherwise, they'll have everyone clashing into each other, and then you'd have safety issues within classes. And again, if they're saying come forwards, they're actually going backwards. If they're saying go backwards, they're actually saying come forward. So fitness instructors, incredible communicators when they get that skill of getting people to, 25 people all to move the way they want them to move at the right time. And again, the fortunate part about that is they have that not only verbal communication opportunity, but the physical one at the same time. So they can call them towards them when they are walking backwards and things like that, and use left if they're going right.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting what you're mentioning on both those examples there. And I think it ties perfectly into a question we want to ask around kind of communication. And I'll come back again to the long-term intangible benefits for, a lot of member organizations around advocacy, so many things that just aren't immediate. You've mentioned there, like the way of showcasing how hard communication is. Have you got any examples of how to communicate those kind of intangible benefits to members who, and we see this all the time, members who are really focused on the immediacy and the kind of the now.
Yeah.
We won't talk about generations just yet, but with the amount of content we've got, with the kind of digital overload, the content, the oversaturation, making sure that, you're kind of being able to do what those fitness instructors can do, but on a bigger scale.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And a lot of the ways is through those imagery, and so photos and videos of showing those interactions, demonstrating it's happening. So I was at a conference in Glasgow last week, and you could see the interactions happening. You could see the people, the world leading industry experts all coming together from across the globe. Then it's a case of, right, they're demonstrating the skill sets on that group. And I was delivering one of my membership webinar segments. I had 20 minutes at a lunchtime bit, and one of the chair from the special interest group that helped organise the committee was in the room. And he actually, at the end, I had a small window of time for questions. And he put a hand up and said, can I just jump in here? And it's not so much of a question for you, it's just permission. Can I just talk about the special interest group and why they should be a member from a member's point of view? And I said, absolutely. Because that's the key to it. It's not me, Matt, trying to tell them. It's members trying to tell members what our impact has been and what our role is. Because we can say it until we're blue in the face, but they might not believe us. It's much more relatable from someone who is a physicist and has been a member, and they have been involved in different ways. We do impact, we've just launched another impact report, and we do 2 a year typically. And it's a case of, yes, these are great ways for us to show it, but how does that demonstrate impact? Like you say, further down the line, some of the initiatives we're working on, we're trying to focus on inspiring the youngest generation to get them interested in physics. We won't know the outcome of that for 20 years. Because we won't know the education routes they go through until 20 years from now, when they've gone through primary school, secondary school, college, whatever they do, onto university or into apprenticeships or T-levels or whatever they end up being in 20 years' time. That landscape might change yet. Who knows? We don't know what the impact is, but it's sowing those seeds now. And we've got one of our staff came up with a really relatable role model it's called Mimi's Adventures. And Mimi is a young girl who goes on an adventure with her grandmother and her dog on physics adventures. And it makes physics relatable. The third iteration has just been launched this week. So the first one was called Mimi's Rainbow Adventure, and they explored the physics of light and had the impact there. Last year, we did Mimi's Space Adventure, because there was lots and lots of things going on around physics and space last year. And this year, there's the International Year of Quantum. So this year, Mimi is going on a tiny adventure and exploring the tiny worlds of physics. So yeah, that's just launched this week. But within there, the imagery for the young children is amazing. The language, and you know, it's aimed at like 5 to 9 year olds. But if you've got younger children, you can read it to them. They can relate to the imagery. And especially we encourage older siblings, if you've got more than one child in the household, they could read it to the younger ones to practice those reading skills. And then at the back, we've got relatable role models again. So we've actually got physicists in there and we've profiled them and we've asked them to talk about themselves and not necessarily talk about their careers just exclusively. We say use the words that would describe you. And when they use the words like shy, reserved, quiet, loud, boisterous, kids can then relate to being shy, loud, boisterous, reserved, whatever it is. What are your interests? I like music. I like music too. You know, it really does make them relatable. And in there, what we also did is we had different regions, had different relatable role models. So like we had versions for Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland and England. So when we were at the Highland Games, we had the Scottish editions and they had some of the Scottish relatable role models along at the festival with them. And the children were going up to these relatable role models and asking for them to sign their book next to it because they wanted to do. So they had that like exposure of being that really inspirational person that someone could go and meet and see that they look like them, which was
Yeah.
awesome.
That's a fantastic example of like really impactful storytelling. And you're already onboarding members for 20 years' time. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Matt.
Let's continue with the fun part of membership. I heard a very huge fan or advocate even of gamification. And you brought a few really good examples from your fitness career back then. How could this work, gamification, I mean, how could this work in more professional body settings as a B2B member organization or something like that? How could we implement gamified content or badges or whatever is
Yeah.
working?
Absolutely. And this is something that we're looking at trialing hopefully in the last quarter of this year at the IOP. And the first stage is just going to be looking at our newest cohort of members. So again, we can measure impact and saying, here's a badge demonstrating your career stage, as in we have 4 membership categories. One of them, you don't get any post-nominals as part of that, which is peer recognition. But we can give them a badge to say you are an associate member of the IOP and you are part of our club. Then if all of a sudden we've given something tangible that they can use on LinkedIn profiles, CVs, you know, other platforms, it has links back to make sure there is an active credential. So if someone was to lapse or resign their membership, all of a sudden that professional recognition of being part of our organisation is gone. And that's there for the whole world to see if they want to follow those links and check up on it. But all of a sudden we've got something we can take away from them that they've gone and used and they've put it somewhere. So hopefully there we start to see a retention tool. The other aspect of that is that further down the line, we want to build those like journey maps to say, right, you're an associate member now. These are some core skills that you could work on as part of your journey to becoming a member grade. Ultimately, for member grade for the IOP, you've got to have completed your apprenticeship, your undergraduate studies, etc. That's the trigger to say you then, and it has to be physics related or predominantly physics related to be able to qualify for the membership grade. We can then showcase in the next step. So we're dangling the carrot saying, this is the next badge, and the next badge means this. And it's going to be in different colours, so that each of our what we're looking at and what we're trying to work towards is that our marketing material communications for the different grades of membership all have colour themes, because colour is such a powerful tool that we don't even realise exists in our everyday life with brands and organisations. So again, showing those different journeys to say, right, then there's a professional registration route. So once they get to those career stages, we can be putting in front of them saying, these are the core competencies of being professionally registered. These are ones that you're already working towards or you might have earned because there's a couple of badges that say it. And within this, we're launching a new learning management system next year. And part of that, we're going to link this into that journey to say, these are the badges, these are the courses you could go and complete to help you work towards it. And it shows the progress. It's almost like you're filling up your energy bar to say I'm almost there and to keep them encouraged and retained. But again, it's that continuous part that you need to reward, because it's no point just saying, excellent, you've been a member, off you go again. One of the best examples in the fitness world is MyZone. Don't know if you've heard of MyZone, but in the fitness world, if you want to go and look at MyZone and continuously use their product and engagement, MyZone is an awesome example. And they start with a very simple reward system that, based on the government minimum guidelines for exercise, they've equated it into points. And you need to get 1,300 points each month to maintain or move forward your status level. And again, people, once you do this, they get into that habit that it's very, very habitual. And it gets to the point where people would forget their socks and they'd go home and not come back to the gym. They forget the MyZone, they're going home and they're coming back. And it was incredible to see that transformation. So it's then, how do you link it to continuous membership? Are the benefits that you release at a certain point in time that aren't relevant to them, can you use that to your advantage? Not all benefits will be relevant to an early career professional. So are there the ones where you can say, right, you get to this point, even if it is just that transition into member grade, you get to member grade, it's that part of that journey, you now get this. If you become a fellow, you now get this. And it is then that value to say, as a fellow, it means something to go for that next grade of membership. And for me, it's right to reward that. And people might disagree, but for me, to recognise and reward the different grades of membership with different is appropriate to what they're doing, because that's what they're trying to get out of it. To be able to say, yes, professional registrations, you can become a panel review member, you can become a professional registrations advisor, you can help support, you can start those mentoring journeys, but at the moment the pathways are limited for us. But there are pathways there that people can go down those journeys, and it helps them demonstrate for themselves those core competencies and doing those skills. But it's like, how do we do that, and how do we make sure that our fellows feel that value? Because fellows, they are the most distinguished individuals. That's the highest recognition we can give someone. That's got to mean, and it does mean something, but how do we let that next person, what's the value back for them? What's that investment and commitment and peer recognition for them? But like I say, with going back to that MyZone, for myself personally, I've been doing it for 7.5 years continuously now, since I first got my MyZone product. And there's no way now I'm going to let that lapse, because all of a sudden you get these status updates, you get the different grades. Ultimately, it's just a name on a digital badge that comes through. But it's that recognition. I don't want to lose that. I've put 7.5 years of effort into earning it. What am I going to do to retain it? Absolutely everything I can.
Yeah, exactly.
The next badge is only a few months away.
It's really interesting. You kind of touched on a little bit there of early career professionals, and when we think of games and things, we often do think about younger generations interact with them. I'm just intrigued a little bit more about kind of what you've seen in terms of engagement around early career professionals, after that kind of drop off after university. And I'm really interested in, are there any specific tools that you've seen that have really helped engage them, whether that's gamification or anything specifically? You touched on a few things there. But...
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, gamification leans into what people and that generation have experienced, and it is all these different apps that they've experienced through growing up and having on their phones. It's all around gamification and wanting to get to the next level or to complete the next challenge and things like that. How do you then transition that to a professional body membership? That is a very difficult challenge to achieve. Is the ways that we can link into it? How do we differentiate from all the other different learning management systems and profiles that they'll have through education providers or employers and things like that? It is that differentiation. So for us, it's actually our strategy at the moment is looking at making it more relevant, more specific and tailored content rather than generic content. Because there's, like I say, it's the same with benefit providers, or benefit schemes that you can add on to your membership now. A few years ago, that was like a really exclusive benefit. Now it's like 10 a penny. You get them with every single utility provider has some sort of discount code that I can go and get for various things. Yeah, exactly. So that hasn't now become, for me, part of my decision-making process. That is just something that if you're going to offer me something, great. If you're not, that isn't the game changer for me. That's not part of my decision making. So it's then how do we make that offering to say this is accessible and gamify it at the same time. So for me, it's about unlocking those different benefits at those various stages of the career, and you could even link them into time served. For example, one of the things, these are the discussions that we're genuinely having in the background to say, is it right and proper for us to do it in the first place? And if it is right and proper, what's appropriate? And for example, members of the ILP there's a seminar room that we have in our offices. All members and it has a capacity of 8 people. Any member can book that free of charge to use if they need a meeting space in London. Brilliant.
That's great.
But is it relevant, or should our early career members have more or less access than a fellow that might have discernible income? Or has a fellow earned it because they've spent 70 years as being a part of our professional body? So it's that seesaw conversation, and it's deciding what's, like I say, we haven't had any final discussions on these, but these are the sorts of conversations that we're having to say, and there's arguments on both sides for it. I said that we have an accelerator space for physics startup businesses, and you can either hire a hot desk you can use it 4 times a month for £80 in the centre of London. Absolutely incredible. Or you can have a complete office space, fully serviced for £2,000 for a physics startup business. But again, for physics startup businesses, it's going to be those long, and it's very designated to that purpose. It's saying we're trying to help these physics businesses get off the ground, get launched, and then they can hopefully sustain themselves. But that is targeting more than likely those early career professionals or those change of career professionals or those startups to say, actually, we need this support, we need that ignition. That's where we need the Institute of Physics to play that role. Does big business or big organisations or universities need that? Probably not, because they've got established resources and buildings and networks that they can access already.
Yeah. And I suppose then for other bodies, like other member organisations, maybe more in the professional sector, are you saying that the way to kind of keep those early career members in a way that lasts well into their careers, are you saying that you've really got to adapt based on the new generation, based on their needs, based on what you offer them, and kind of
the way we communicate? I think that's really interesting. So for me, I'm well used to looking at finance reports and documents and all this and getting consumed and expecting it. Now we're chatting to us through our student engagement team and officers. We're looking at actually how do people receive their communication? Because again, one of the things that we know our recruitment of members is incredibly steady. But we're aspiring to grow our membership, like every other membership organisation hopefully is. No one's planning to go down and decline in their memberships. But even just sustaining, like ours had been a declining membership. Last year we managed to stabilise it and we got small growth. This year we're going to achieve small growth again. But our ambitions is far greater than just achieving small growth. And for us, it's about saying, well, and our target audience, if we're going to shift the demographic, because that's the biggest challenge we've got. We have as a professional body, probably very similar across all the membership bodies, aging demographic, but the vast majority of our recruitment is in those early career stages. So it comes back down to retention, and then it's a case of, so it's great that I'm doing these webinars, but is that how they want to receive the information? Or do they want a 14-second Instagram video of me doing a highlight reel every few, on each of these different ones just to say, check this out or whatever it is. But that's probably not going to be me because I don't look like an early career professional anymore, sadly. I've moved on beyond that point since then, getting other members talking about their experiences of accessing these benefits.
Comes back to the brand ambassador thing. Do you take both approaches? I just wanted to ask like the last question on kind of that balance between younger members. There's a lot of talk about intergenerational demands, the balance on the younger members and the more traditional established members. Are you kind of taking both approaches? Are you putting Instagram video out with a younger member while still doing the kind of...
So we're not yet, is probably the honest answer. We're not doing anything in terms of that yet. We have different social media platforms and profiles, and we do like videos about success stories or people accessing the Bell Burnell Graduate Scholarship Fund and things like that, so they can see who's accessing it and what it means to them. But for me, it's something that we probably need to lean into a bit more to engage them in their space. And that's probably outside of our, well, historically outside of our comfort zone to lean into that space and engage with members. I'd say, being brutally honest, that I like where we are right now is we don't do enough about profiling our membership and putting our membership in front of other members. It's more focused on our policy and advocacy work and government impact work. And actually, one of the audiences that we've neglected is our membership. So that's something that I'm pushing for us to lean into. And one of the really pleasing things from a memberships perspective is we launched our new strategy for the next 5 years for the IOP. And for the first time, membership was a core strand of the strategy. So for us, it's obviously we've got Tom Grinius, new CEO, come in a few years ago, very much led that direction. And that's really brilliant to see. Hopefully, showing to members we're putting them in the strategy and trying to position them as a key part of the strategy.
Why would you not?
Why would we not want to do that? But now we need to build all these other things in the background as well. And, we just have to be honest with where we are right now. We don't do enough of it. We're not doing it in the right ways. And again, chatting, this is where you can look at it, because we do have a good sized team. You can go and chat to the younger audiences and younger team members and say to them, how do you receive your information? Does that then reflect the market research we're doing through our university engagement schemes and through our apprentices and things like that? And just try and map it out as best as we can. But then we need to use that data. Again, being a data-led individual, we're going to track these things, see what the impact is, see if we've made mistakes or if we need to correct our course. But it's not just a case of going down a path and that's the path we're going down. It's about letting ourselves learn to fail and be okay with that and be comfortable with it.
Great answer. Thanks, Matt.
Let's go into a completely different topic, and we touched it already briefly earlier. You said obviously the member manager is important, the induction process, the communicating the value for the members, the content, the networking. All of this is really crucial of winning them as a member, but then keeping them also to stay. But then I think one important thing that came through is building a culture that is creating really a nice, comfy community feeling. And this is down to everyone. No? It's not only the member manager that makes them feel welcome. You said earlier when you come in and the receptionist is grumpy or not friendly, or you want to order coffee and it's not right, and then it creates a bad experience. Yeah. How did you make sure in all your different roles to create a culture that is really positive towards your members and everyone really understands how everyone as a person has impact on either when member feeling positive or negative about their relationship with the organization?
Yeah, for me, it comes down to the people that you're working with and spending that time with them, demonstrating their role and their impact. Because when I would go into a club, I'd have staff say to me, I'm just a receptionist, I'm just a cleaner, I'm just a fitness advisor. I'm like, you're just nothing. Remove the word just from your language. You are the fitness advisor for this Ballantine Health Club, and you're representing not only yourself, but me and the organisation, the team. We want you to be, and just let them know that how much value they had in terms of making that contribution. And the other thing is that we would show them the impact of their results. So I talked to them, and one of the things that I introduced, not only for my benefit, because it made my team look better, is we'd have almost a cheat sheet behind reception. So every single day, the reception team would put an updated membership figures for that month on how we're doing. How many new people had joined this month? How many people had left? How many sales did we do yesterday? How many appointments have we got for show rounds today? Things like this. So all of a sudden, the reception team, whoever was updating it, would start to build that knowledge and understanding of the movements that were happening. And ultimately, they could say, great. Because for me, it's not a case of just coming who's in the door, it's who's going out at the same time. So it's that net member movement kind of perspective. And when I joined the IOP, no one had heard of net member movement. And it's like, right, it was just introducing that new terminology. But by demonstrating those roles that they could play and saying, right, we've improved this, cancellations have come down 10%. Now we don't need to go and chase. Or the people where we're getting the sales in, we're getting more benefit because even if we maintain the same recruitment levels, we're still moving further forwards than we were before because we brought our retention levels down, our attrition's better. So, and it was demonstrating you've played a role in this, and this is how it's happened, and showing them different things like our external audit scores. This is what we've improved on. This is or if whether that was a health and safety one or a mystery
Yeah.
shopper, whatever it was. And if we'd get a nice piece of feedback about a team member in a mystery shop, I'd get them in and I'd show them, I'd give them a printout of it and a copy of it and say, this is the impact that you had. And again, really nice moments. And we introduced it at the Bannatyne group just before I left there. And I had an 18-month period where I was at Aldi as well, working in retail. And it was called your wow moments. So what were your wow moments? And we went through and said, right, ask people for feedback as, part of that new member survey, or if they'd done a member engagement, any member could submit it, but we targeted the newest member. What was your wow moment? They were like, when you got them in, if they'd named the member of staff, again, we had a wall in my canteen area where I'd print them out. And every week I'd put out all the wows that I'd received in the last week so they could showcase it. And what was really, really nice is that even over the course of a month or so, the majority of staff would get at least one wow. So it wasn't seen as a negative. It could easily have become a negative thing. Someone could have gone on a downer. But because people saw each other as getting their wows and getting that recognition for what they were doing, they were kind of inspired to go, actually, I'm going to keep it positive. I might not be having the best day. I might have a go. And again, having that comfort with the staff to say, whatever's going on in your outside world, I want to know about those things. I want you to talk and be open and honest. But once we've got that out of our systems, don't let it affect what's going on in here. Keep this as your positive place. Enjoy coming to work. And people genuinely did and still do enjoy working for me because we have that open and honest culture and mindset in the teams that I manage, and saying everything else is brilliant. No, it's not actually. This has happened, that's happened, whatever it is, or someone's just run into my car outside, or whatever whatever's gone in your day, we don't know about it, but we need to acknowledge it's there because we're human at the end of the day. And if we don't acknowledge those things and we try to be robots, then we just get run down, we get ignored, we don't feel valued. So it's having that comfort to say, yes, you're part of the team. Here's your wow moments. Let's really keep that energy positive. Members genuinely wanted to chat to the staff. So it's about building those relationships as well and seeing that those are the roles that they can play. And it's not just a case of passing it on to the next person and showing disinterest. It's like say, as simple as taking responsibility. Members complained in the changing rooms to a member of the team, right, let me take you to the next person. If I wasn't in the club, or whoever the next most appropriate person in the club is, let's go and find them together. Let's make sure I've taken ownership of this. It's not just a grumble. And again, I really conveyed that to my member care team in the club. I said, do you hear something in the changing rooms? Don't just put your head down and try and hide down the corner. Make a note of it, or come and tell me straight away if it's significant, because then I can go in while the member's still in there. I can go in. If it's as simple as a locker not working, I can go and address it. If there's something we haven't noticed, I can go and acknowledge it and say, look, I've heard, X, Y, or Z has just heard this conversation. I hope you don't mind, but they've come and told me about it. This is what I'm going to do. I can either say that we already know about it and we've got a maintenance plan in place and we're just waiting on parts or whatever it was, because some of the things were beyond our control. For example, some of the replacement parts for equipment, most of them were in Italy, and it was an 11-week lead time. So for a piece of gym equipment to have a downtime of 11 weeks was obscene sometimes. But that was just the way it was. Some of the parts were held in the UK, but some of them were only stored in Italy. So it's like, all right, I've got to wait 11 weeks. So what I started doing is the parts that I knew would break most frequently, I'd order spares and keep them in my own club. And then I'd just replace the spares. So it's, again, playing the game as best as I can and say, right, I know it's going to take 11 weeks from Italy and it breaks every 3 months. Let's have one in stock. It's just as simple as that. And then it was like, how come your club's always operational? The one 9 miles down the road isn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. We've just got things right here.
Matt, getting things right here. I think that's the final message from you. I really like to say thank you to sharing all your experiences. That was so crucial to also show that something that works in a sector like fitness can also be easily translated into something like the Institute of Physics. And I think this journey of taking one learning and applying it in a completely unrelated setting is why we have this stakeholder impact forum. So my final question to you is really, what kind of challenges do you face now at the Institute of Physics that we can ask other members of the stakeholder impact forum, future speakers, other thought leaders that maybe have already solved it, so we can refer it back to you and say, look, we've got somebody that has a problem and we just heard you solved it. So what are your expectations towards the stakeholder impact forum, and what could be the challenges you would be presenting to other future speakers?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think I know where we are in our journey. I've been very honest about that and open. So it's other organizations that are further ahead in their journeys where they've like gone through these experiences that could help shape our thinking and our knowledge and understanding. So, and have they made mistakes that they'd go, actually, this is our reflections and learnings from these, and this is what we'd ask back. So, like I say, at the moment, we're going through this complete journey of starting out and shaping these. We've done trials. We're now to roll that out to a wider membership. We don't know if we're going to have the same success, because one of the things that we, hold our hands up to at the Valentine Days, we'd introduce some things and it'd actually have the opposite impact as to what we wanted it to have. So it's then a case of saying, right, let's stop that. So has there been anything that someone's done that they then actually went back on and said that wasn't the right route for us to go down with? That'd be really interesting to find out.
And if you take one thing, if you just wave a magic wand and say, look, this is something I really want to solve, and maybe somebody else has already solved it, what is this most critical challenge for you right now?
So for us, probably integration of all our different teams and systems to work in together. So we have different platforms and different systems and different teams that over time have all accessed these different services, and they don't necessarily speak to one another. So it's a really complex and very manual, time heavy administration tasks for us to decipher all these things and make sure, and it doesn't make for seamless experiences yet. So are there any not quick wins, because they're not quick wins, but are there any learnings and reflections or providers out there where they've been able to say, actually, this helped us pull all those things together so we don't have all these silos? It is so if I'm doing something that is then fully understood and translated across these teams, that is now, and it raises whatever it does to those. So yeah, that would be really, really interesting.
Amazing. And when it comes to positive engagement with members, any critical challenges you see here?
For us, it's say, positioning them in the right place for the right time for the right audience. So again, if anyone's further ahead in terms of engaging 18 to 30-year-old space and those tools that they've utilized, those learnings they've got, for us, we're moving into that space, we're exploring it. So like I say, we're going to make mistakes, we're going to learn from them. But if anyone's got some experiences and some positive outcomes from concepts that they've introduced or the ways they've approached it, for me, that would be awesome.
Amazing. One last question. Sorry, I can't let it go.
No, that's fine.
If you meet a colleague from a different member organization and you say, I just spoke at the Stakeholder Impact Forum and it was really a good experience, and you would like to recommend also speaking, what would be your message? Why should they join?
For me, I love sharing my knowledge and my experience, and I love hearing from other people too. So for me, that you as an organisation have been really positive in your approach, made it very comfortable, very easy process for me. So I'm very comfortable speaking, but you put me in a good place anyway. It's felt like just a very natural conversation. So one of the biggest things for me is don't be afraid of talking about the negative sides of your experiences. Those are probably more engaging to other people than all the positives, because we could all talk till we're blue in the face about all the positive things that we've experienced. It's those negative sides as well that people actually, they'll say, we're not perfect and nobody's perfect. It shouldn't be attainable, perfection. So it's about saying these are the things that we've done, these are the things that we want to share, and being open and honest and transparent in a safe space. We're working in the same environment. We've probably got different audiences, especially as professional bodies. There might be some crossover in some organisations, but on the whole, no, and we're all facing these same challenges.
Great.